Hey everyone, it's Maureen. I really wanted to show you more of a close-up of what I've been working on. Now, you got an introduction to this particular piece, my last video. But I'm filming, instead of filming on my iPhone, I am filming on my camera, and look at that. You can get some beautiful shots. Okay, this is the original artist's embroidery here. So chunky, as I had said in my prior video. Like stem stitch, lots of stem stitch, running stitch along the edges. I haven't found this very dark brown yet. That's something I'm going to have to go into my stash and see if I can find it. It's the only color I haven't color matched yet. But really fun, kind of random. That's what I like, and that's what I've been doing with this piece, is really just been doing random color with it. And I wanted to show you a bit more of what a split stitch looks like. So I'm kind of ending this particular one here, but bear with me. Alright, I try not to be too shaky, but I'm free handing this a little bit here. So I have my DMC floss, a single strand that's doubled over and then anchored into one of the edges of the design. I have it heavily waxed, which prevents it from tangling as I am embroidering. Okay. Apologize for the movement there. So basically I take a stitch, I go back a few centimeters, pierce through with my needle in the middle of that stitch. There we go. And then pull the remaining up and through. Sometimes it tries to tangle on the back. Alright. And I was talking about the back of embroidery, so I'm going to show you the back of this piece. So this is all, the running stitch was already done on this piece when I got it. But all of this work here that you're seeing, the green, this brown, this yellow, going back and forth up along the edges, that's all me. And this is where we're working right now. There are some knots back here from the prior person. Typically, you don't want to knot or put a knot in your embroidery thread. You want to bury your end in and around other areas where you've already embroidered to anchor it basically in the other pieces. Because the knots themselves in embroidery over time end up making it wear kind of oddly. So we're so used to using a little knot in sewing and things, I think it's translated over to embroidery, but with embroidery you're supposed to keep your back as smooth as possible because these knots will just not lay properly. Because the prior artist used these knots, what I'm going to be doing with it is just anchoring, using them as anchor pieces and trying to flatten it out as much as I possibly can as I go along and embroider. But I also wanted to kind of show you the color match here too. So let's go back to original piece. Alright, let's pull up one of these original leaves here. So we have the berries. Let's start with that. And so I have a DMC floss number 304. It's maybe slightly brighter, but once it's worked up, it'll appear a slightly bit darker. So that's what we're going to use for the berries. For the bit of green, I'm using DMC 701 for the green. This is pretty close. I try to keep it fairly close in shade as possible. So when you're looking at the piece, that it's not that you could detect that it's a shade off. Okay, for the yellow, there we go. For the yellow, I'm using DMC 3820, sort of a mustard color. So those are the color matchings I've been able to do. For the tannish brown color that we're seeing as both the veins in the leaf and edges, I'm using DMC 434 to match that. It's not perfect, but it's really close. And it's what I've used over here. A piece here just to kind of show you on this one. See, we're pretty darn close. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's got to be pretty darn representative of the original embroidery. Now I'm going to have to color match whatever this dark brown happens to be. That's the last bit that I really have to do. But I wanted to show you some progress and a little bit more of split stitch if you weren't able to kind of understand it from last time. So here I am putting a stitch down. On the back side, I'm going a little bit back, piercing through my stitch, pulling up through, and laying another stitch. After laying that other stitch, I go back just a little bit, pierce up through the middle of my prior stitch, and then lay a new stitch. And you just keep going. And what I do is I'm snaking along. So I will get to the end, I'll snake along and go back here. So I started here, I go along, and then snake along and continue to go back and forth, back and forth. I have used a little bit of knots too in here, but I try to keep them very, very tiny because this is going to be a tablecloth, so I don't have to worry about it being perfectly flat, since there was knots also in here by the original artist. But I do my best to bury my end if I possibly can instead of doing a knot. But granted, it's one of those, there's a rule, but unfortunately a lot of us break the rules. But yet again, it's a piece of art, so you run into that whole aspect of things as well, where it's like, okay, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to do it the way that I think is going to best finish the piece, or do it in a method I know. Because I think that's the other thing. This artist may have not heard about the whole anchoring your thread and not doing knots. That's very possible. This could just be the way that they learned from whomever they learned their skills from. So you'll have a lot of this crossing information saying you should do it this way, and then you'll have somebody else teaching you maybe another way. It's not that either is technically wrong, per se. It's just what those people knew at the time as to how they were to complete their embroidery. I've used, as I said, some knots in this piece, but it's one of those situations where I keep my knots very, very small if possible, and then try to anchor them to other areas, and try to keep it as flat as possible, because it is going to be a tablecloth after all. I'm also formulating whether or not I want to put a backing on this to protect the back of the embroidery, because it really is meant to be a decorative tablecloth. So it shouldn't be getting a lot of extra use or staining, so to speak, but it is a linen, as far as like a house linen, so it is meant to be used, so you run into that aspect of things too. Now this is a cotton tablecloth and we're doing cotton embroidery on cotton. But it does bring to mind and makes me think, rules. We are taught one thing, sometimes we do another. But I guess that's artist preference too, if you think about it as well. Just wanted to share with you some nice, relaxing embroidery. I hope your week's been well. If you like this kind of content, and I have a few other embroidery videos, I will be getting back to the black work here very shortly to show you how to work across the pattern like I had said last time. But if you like these kind of videos, please consider liking this one and subscribing to see my other ones. I normally upload every other Friday. So as I said, if I am not able to post on my normal schedule, I will put a post in the About section to let you know when a video will be coming out. You can also use the little bell notification in YouTube to let you know when I upload as well. Typically, it's pretty decent at letting people know about that, mostly. If you have any questions, you can always leave them in the comments. And I will see you in my next video. Ooh, we have a snag here, guys. There we go. Got it through. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.